to another episode of the Creatives Podcast. And today we have a good bit of topics to be discovered, including a question from Twitter that was asked that's very important to a lot of new people, tips and tricks, and any recommendations that we can give on how to get clients. But the main topic of discussion will be the difference between full-time, part-time, and freelance work. I'm Mick G Production. I'm again videographer and editor, and let's pass it off to Colin.
Hello, my name is Colin. I am a freelance graphic designer working with EGL, which is, if you don't know, is a apparel provider for multiple esports brands and content creators. I specialize in advertisements and apparel design. And I've been doing this for like 6 years or so I got experience. You know what I mean? Pass it off to Cluxer.
Oh god. Okay. I'm a photographer, freelance photographer within the esports scene. I am going to events, and right now I'm working from home doing color grading, editing, and everything like that. So, Seb, let's hear it.
Hey guys, well, I'm Seven Creations. I'm a full-time freelance graphic designer, working for myself and for Owned TV. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. So today we will be talking about the difference between full-time and part-time, especially within esports, and yeah, we're just gonna go over some small stuff, like agreements, what to actually, like, what should you watch when you're gonna sign one, and contracts and everything. So yeah, first of all, what do you guys think about like going full-time in esports? What would you need, Mick?
Yeah. So going full time in esports, I think is a bit of a trick to it, because I think esports is a market where you can either be making no money or you could be making a lot of money. So I feel like full time is good in if you want a stable income, you're guaranteed that money. However, I honestly, in my opinion, if you are big, your name's big and your thing's going well, I think freelance is kind of the best market to be in, right? Because you don't want to be holding off on clients. You can make more money, but again, full time, it's a stable income, and with esports right now, like the growth it has projected, and it's a rapid growth, especially thanks to COVID. Esports is just getting bigger by the second. Teams are realizing they need more money into the media side of things. Sponsorships now want their branding to be shown off more. So full time is definitely, it's definitely not a bad thing. All right, it's definitely a good thing. Full time in anything has always been good, but there's an area in full time where you really have to look at, and I think it's the main area where you have to know your worth. Okay, because I know last week we said, when you're taking on projects, you should know your worth. Don't try and underball and stuff. But at times, I think that's okay to underball. You're guaranteeing extra money if you're always in the profit and that side of things. But when you're taking full time, like, esport projects go on a long time. Like, I think we've all experienced that 24 hours staying up, to get your deadline in. And that's what esports normally is, right? So I think when it comes to full-time work, you really need to know your that's when you need to know your worth the most, and that's when conversations with a lot of teams need to have that discussion, because a lot of the time that's when low ball offers come in. So that's my opinion on full-time. Maybe I'm just a bit weird. I just see things different, but I think freelance overall is kind of the best market in most cases.
Okay, and what would you think like would be a good salary for someone who's going full time, for example? Because I mean, if you're going full time, you most likely won't be working with other people because you're under contract, and
So
like you have to have some kind of starting point where you should be able to make a living out of it.
So this kind of depends, and all time I name a price or whatever, I'm going to be talking in pounds, right? Because I live in the UK currently. So remember that it's pounds to US, it's pounds to euro in this. So as weird as this is, I often think graphic designers should be making more than videographers and photographers. And the reason for that is when a photographer and videographer aren't at an event, they're not doing more. So the way I've kind of seen esports is it should be paid off on a bonus occasion, right? So my case personally, I'd be looking in around 2.5 a month, you know? On top of that now, I have bonuses and I have extra stuff. So we're going to be going to events. Graphic designers don't go to events most cases. So let's talk about now the event. They have to pay for flights, they have to pay for taxis, they have to pay for food, they have to pay, for hotel. And on top of that, they have to pay for spending fees. So you have money to buy bottles of water, you have money to have food, you have money to go out with the players, because you're still working at these events, right? So let's say you join, an orc consistent at LAN, maybe 2 to 3 LANs a month, that's a lot of fly time and stuff. So when you put all the figures together, that 2.5 becomes like near 5k fast.
Well, depending
right?
on where you're going, yeah, but
Yeah,
most
of
of the
course.
time it will come closer to 5k than 3k, for example, because it's just going to cost a lot of money.
And I'm talking about 2.5k after tax.
Yeah, for sure.
So with graphic designers, I think it's a lot more niche of a market. They don't go to events. They get called, at any time. And when an event takes place, they have to make the graphics for every scenario possible. Your team could be projected to trio, and next thing it goes into a game 5. That's a 2-2. That's 5 graphics you have to make. So a graphic designer in events they're not at the event, but they're at home, and because of it, they have to stay up them extra hours to make sure all the graphics are done, and they have to create the graphics for each scenario. So I think in their case, it's right to go, for an extra bit.
Yeah, like 3k, for example.
Yeah, I can't really speak on how much a graphic designer should be making, but that's just how I see it. Because either way, the videographer, the photographer are going to be making more in money. They're just not going to see all the money.
But I think that's why we have
but-
Seb and Colin. Like, they can talk about the designer, graphic designer, like stuff. Like, how much money do you think that, for example, you should be making a month? I want to go to Seb because he is full time in esports. Like, you don't have to name actual numbers, but you can name actual numbers, but just an average, for example.
Okay, so first I'd like to talk about like freelance in a hand and full time in another hand. I think it's a really interesting subject because in this community, especially, like if you want to be freelance, like first what I like to ask you guys, like, what do you understand by freelance? Because I feel like in this community, as I told in the last episode, like everyone use this word but don't even know what it means.
Okay, so what I would say is freelance is having at least 3 clients, like at a consistent rate, I guess.
Okay. But like before all of this, like in my country, so in France, when you're freelance, it means that you pay taxes for what you do, and it means that you have a registered company.
Yeah, but like the definition of freelance for me is like being able to take on different clients, and it doesn't matter which client it is. Because if you're working for a company, the company will most likely get the clients for you. So making your own decisions and being on your own, that's freelance for me.
Well,
freelance for me would be. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go.
Freelance for me is like a person, and you don't have to be a full-time designer or anything to be a freelance. Freelance for me is you're working with multiple brands on different projects without being locked down to one brand specifically, and not being like restricted on what you can or cannot make. And like you're working, like I said, you're working with different brands instead of just one, to where it's full-time. You're making all of your income from one specific company. And either you can't work with other companies, or you can't take on as many freelance projects, if you will, on the side. And
Okay.
then,
I would agree with Collins as well. In the case of, I understand what you mean by freelance, you pay taxes and everything, but part-time you pay taxes too. So freelance to me is you're not restricting yourself to one thing, right? Freelance is, in most cases, I would say freelancers are the people who are trying to make a full-time living. They just don't want to be signed down to one single contract, right? That's what a freelancer
Yeah.
on paper, that is what a freelancer does, right? It's self-employed and hired to work for different companies on particular assignments. That's the definition of freelance. You can be
Yeah.
paying taxes and you can be signing contract freelance like agreements where the company itself will pay off your side of the taxes. But like in the UK and stuff, like you have a 12,500 personal allowance. So if you're not making 12,500, you don't even pay taxes. You don't even have to be a registered company. And even to pay taxes, you don't have to be a registered company in Ireland or.
How do you make your invoices then? You have to get a VAT number.
you could just make PayPal invoices, or you can use services like FreshBooks and stuff.
Okay, well that's not how it works in France actually. That's why I was asking this. Because I see like 90% of the graphic designers in the sport community are like 16 and are considering themselves as freelance, but I don't know. I feel like they don't even know what is a registered company or
Yeah, I feel like that. Like you should be having a registered company to be an actual freelancer, and in my opinion, because it works the same in the Netherlands, by the way. I mean, you can make up to what is it, $8,000 a year, something like that, without having to like let everyone know, I guess. But
See, here in the US, it's closer to UK. You can make 12,000 something before you have to pay taxes.
And also, you don't need to have invoices to like invoices back up your case, but like for the government, I think they just care more about making money. So if you went to an accountant and registered like late in the year or whatever as a freelance business, or even if you didn't want to, and you went to an accountant and said, "This is all the spendings and income I've gained from doing like my like let's say you're a student, right? From my freelance work," the accountant can write it up, create an invoice book for you afterwards, and then from that they can submit it to taxes.
Okay.
So like you don't have to be on the consistent so invoices work in the sense of, right, like it's easy access to find what what projects you've done. So if you have an accountant on deck, which I think a freelancer should, right? There's two things a freelancer should always have, and that's access to a lawyer and access to an accountant.
yeah.
So if you have an accountant over here, or how I did it back in Ireland, like the accountant will consistently keep up with your figures.
Yeah.
So once a month you'll go to the accountant and you'll be like, "Hey, this is all the money I've made from my freelance work, and then this is the money where I've spent it," And then he'll create like a monthly like invoice book or monthly freelance book, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think it's just same as having a pay slip or anything. Like,
yeah,
just having some kind of overview of what you made that month. That's basically it. And I don't think you have to actually like,
but I don't know,
like show them what it is per job, but just an overall figure. That's.
I do think though Seb is spot on in the sense of people don't understand that like there comes a stage like where you could be making over 12,500, over 15,000, and people aren't paying taxes, right? And that's a dangerous game. Okay, 90% of the time the government doesn't really care if you're making less than 20,000 in most countries. The government won't, demand money off you if you take on a full-time job, if you're going to pay tax on the full-time job. The government doesn't really care if you're making less than a certain amount of money. But for good practices, I 100% agree. You should have a registered company. You should have, them extra things, because not only does it make you in good practice mentally, it makes you professionally look better because you know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I will say, I don't think that I will say that to be a freelance creative, you don't
Yeah.
need a company because by
Yeah, I agree.
definition, it's just someone who offers their services to multiple different companies. So like the term freelance, you don't necessarily need all of that stuff. But to be a professional freelance, I'd 100% agree.
The thing
Yeah.
is, most freelancers are students.
Mhm.
So they're never going to be pulling in over. Now, okay, there's the exceptions, Seb. And I know there's the exceptions, but most freelancers are always students who are either studying in their area and they're just trying to help pay off bills, or else it's that 1 to 2 year gap. So on average, a production like a videographer or a camera operator or producer on average will have 2 years between graduating and working full time, which is freelance, because they need to have a portfolio.
Well,
Yeah.
well, what I wanted to say before I asked this question is that okay, so in the sports industry, if you want to work as a freelance and make it a real income, you have to get yourself a name, and
Yeah.
I mean, you have to build a community around you and to be like famous. Because if you don't have any follower, if you don't have any popularity, you won't get any money, obviously.
Because
So-
no one knows who you are. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So what I would say is that if you're not famous and looking to to work in sports, well, just go for full time because
Oh yeah, well,
you'll have
1,000%.
you'll have safe money at the end of the month, and that's more safe. But if you have a small community and you're feeling that you're growing, well, just go freelance. Try to get like freelance agreements, and but if you want to be a real full-time freelance, you have to build yourself a name and a
Yeah,
community.
No, I think you
1,000%.
have to get your name out there, and I think that's both for graphic designers as photographers and
think, yeah.
videographers. I think it's for everyone. Yeah,
Yeah,
for every freelancer, because without any contacts, you won't be getting anywhere. And
And you
that's
have
what
to,
I
you know-
noticed in the beginning as well, because I've been doing this for 2 years, and I only made my first like full-time salary back in February. So I mean, you have to work for it really, really hard, and probably need a side job in the beginning as well. I think every freelance person would have to do that, unless you have a lot of savings somewhere in your bank.
it's very rare.
Yeah, but you just have to make a name for yourself first and get your name out there. And networking, especially if you're at events or anything, walk up to the people that you would like to work with someday, and just drop your name, because I mean, that's how they would notice you. Because if you're at an event, for example, let's say Paris, like CDC Paris, CDL Paris, Call of Duty.
CDC. Oh God.
But just walk up to an org owner and be like, "Hey man, I'm a photographer. I'm doing photos at these events. I would love to do it more often. My name is this and that." Just give them your business card, for example. Don't even have to give them your Twitter in this case, and they will recognize you on Twitter when you come by with your photos. Like, it's much easier for them to notice you when you already dropped your name there, than actually having to do that after.
But
I
the
think
thing,
it's the same for designing. I mean, we're more based on like online stuff like that, right? Like we're more online, and you guys are more in person because you have to be like at events. You can do the same thing on Twitter though. Like reach out to people by tweeting at them or DMing them or something, being like, "Hey, I'm interested in working with you guys potentially in the future. Here's my work." And then if they ever needed something, they're more than likely gonna remember your name to be able to reach out to you to give you a
I
shot.
feel like this, like, right, this is something that gets overlooked at all the time, because I said this last week as well, in the sense of, like, in this industry, a lot of people expect things to be handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I see it all the time. Like people like going behind people's back on Twitter, being like, "How did that person get the job? How did this person get the job?" You know, like if you look through my emails, I'm sending like emails left, right, and center to organizations about full-time applications, or about like, hey, if you need any videographer for any UK event, I'm based in Scotland. You know, like I'm always like flexible on going to events. You know, I have past history with a lot of teams. You can reach out to them, and then I link their email, you know, as references. Like if you're not consistently trying to look for work, like you're not going to get it handed to you.
I think that we should drop the name Hitmarker Jobs here.
Fantastic
Because
company.
Hitmarker is a website that is like gives you some kind of overview of the jobs available in esports, and it's especially made for esports. So if you want to get into esports, definitely check that out. But just scroll through it once a week. Look at the like the jobs that are available at that moment, and just
honestly, apply for everything.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just apply for that.
The first thing I have bookmarked is Hitmarker.
Yeah, but it might be harder for photographers in my case, because they rarely have any jobs for photographers. Videographers and editing is something that's more common there, and especially graphic design is pretty common on Hitmarker jobs as well.
I'd say graphic designers are the most commonly sought
Yeah,
out
I think
team.
it's 1, 2, 3. You know, like graphic design, videographer, photographer, and a lot in between videographer and photographer. To be honest,
The problem,
a lot of volunteer stuff though.
But get started with the volunteer stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. If you're just starting out, getting into esports, 100% apply for those.
I want to hear what Seb had to say.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, the problem even with full time is that it's always the same problem with esports. Is that, I mean, I'm talking as a graphic designer. I didn't know about photographers and stuff, but yeah, as a graphic designers, with huge like esports team, you have to be famous if they want you to contact you. That's what I feel.
Well, you at least have to have a portfolio for yourself.
Even with a good portfolio, with design, if they don't know who you are, it's like impossible to get a reply.
Here's my question for you, then. Why do you think that is? Because anybody, right? No, well, let me be careful with my words. Not everybody can be famous on Twitter, but you can like there are definitely cheats around being famous on Twitter. Like you could join orgs left, right, and center, or I call them more clans. You know, the YouTube video. Like and you'll get all them support, and then you'll get all their fan support, and you just keep popping around like that, and eventually you'll become like pretty big on your graphic design. And I can say names. I'm not gonna obviously, but like anyone can almost do that. So why do you think it is when you're applying for jobs, you have to be famous? Like what experience in that sense?
Because I think they are looking for people to make them grow as well.
Well, that I don't think you're completely right there. Like it really depends on the company. Would you say, for example, Owned cares about that? Because I think they care more about the way the designs come out than how famous the person is on social media.
Well, I don't know what's their philosophy, but like, if I was the CEO of Owned, I would probably try to get more like famous people, because the way they are promoting their designs is basically through social media. And like, you see, when I'm posting a Twitch package, if I get like 100 or 200 likes on the Twitch package, it's going to promote their work. If you get a random guy like who doesn't even have social media or you know, isn't famous or anything, it won't help them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has to go back and forth.
Because I mean, like, if you think about it, with graphic designers, I think it's more with graphic designers than like photographers or anything like, and videographers, because our platform is all online. It is all about social media and stuff, to whereas you guys are like in person at these events, taking these photos, interacting with players like in person and stuff. But all of like a designer's impact is on social media, and I think having a bigger following, I wouldn't say being famous, is better because it gives and orgs want that because it gives organizations and companies that idea in the back of their head that if they can grow their social media, those are the type of people we want on our team to help grow ours.
I feel like that's the same for photography and videography as well. Like maybe not as much, but you do have to have your name out there. Like ever since I got my name out there, like no, but for real, like let's look back at last year, literally a year ago in May. I was working for some smaller organizations, and just because I didn't have my name out there as a photographer, but as a Call of Duty player or whatever I was doing, like a streamer or anything. But ever since my name actually got out there as a photographer, I have many people hopping into my DMs before each event just because they know who I am, and it's easier to look up someone that's actually out there than someone you don't know yet. So I feel like you have to work harder when you're not out there yet.
Plus, it also builds like this kind of quiet like trust.
Yeah.
That if you have a bigger brand, that
Yeah, for
people
sure.
just tend to trust you more. Because if you weren't trustworthy, your brand probably wouldn't be that big, or you wouldn't be working with all these big companies.
I would rather
I
go
feel like
with
that's why
someone who has
references are
10k followers than 5.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with it.
I mean, it's not obviously it shouldn't be the most important thing, but
No.
I think it has an impact.
Well, like I think like we're at such a day and age where like growing famous or whatever vocab you want to use is such a overestimate of how someone's ability is, right? Like I'm not gonna again get involved with names, but I constantly see YouTube photographers, millions of subscribers, get shit talked by photography in esports because they're famous for the wrong reasons. Okay, that's worrying.
Yeah, but if we're just talking about esports.
But if we're just talking about esports, it's the same kind of thing for me, right? Like, so I understand having a, like, I wouldn't say I have an active Twitter. I have a really supportive Twitter in the sense of when I do post projects or whatever, I have people in my DM saying that was sick and ask me about it and stuff. But I feel like in my experience, right, I feel like I didn't get to where I am today by growing my following, by playing it. Like what I feel in my experience, it was because so with Team War as an example, you know how I became friends with their owner was I was in Paris. I saw they didn't have a videographer. I was like, oh well, that sucks. Like, let me just get a few clips. Literally got 5 minutes of clips, put something together. They ended up winning the event. I tweeted it. Their owner loved it. Their owner said like, oh, I'm dropping you a follow for that, you know. And then in stream said like, that's the kind of people I'm going to keep my eye on. Optic Hex said the same thing. He said he'll never pick up someone with the incentive of money. If a creative person has an incentive of money, then they're no good as a creative person, right? Because you're only going to be agreeing with the brand. So I think.
Did you like, just say Optic Hex?
Yeah, or RP. You know how it is. He'll forever be Optic Hex, I think. But like, you know, like in that sense of mine, right? I think it's a battle of the mind in that sense. Like I think like Tal have done everything for my career in like the UK scene, but I won't call them a big org in the UK, especially they're not a big org outside of Call of Duty. But you know, now have like, you know, I dropped videos left, right, and center for them from Minnesota. I turned one project into multiple projects, and that like from that I had another client come into my DM. He was like, hey, I want you to edit something for me, and then I added that something, and that opened another client, and then I randomly made a CS:GO frag movie. I was like, hey, you know, now with COVID, I'm gonna drop this, and now I have like 4 orgs who all have CS teams, and then they see I have the videography as a background, and now they're asking me to go to like CS lands, and now then I have League of Legends teams seeing that I streamed League of Legends, going, hey, you know about League of Legends, you know about your camera, and you know we need someone to come in, and now they're asking me to do that, right? I truly believe that if you can show you know your ground and you know you're like they can see that you're interested and you're constantly trying to be better, I feel like that alone is enough.
Yeah, but I think that that gives you following as well. Your motivation
would give
gives
you
you
following.
gives you following.
I don't know.
But I mean,
I'm really sure about it.
Maybe I just don't post enough to Twitter, like relevant stuff.
Yeah,
right?
maybe
'Cause
not.
recommendation
But
by word is more powerful than anything, I feel like. Because if you start working with orgs and then they start talking about you to other orgs, then you don't necessarily build like a following in terms of like followers.
Yeah,
But
I get you.
you are getting you are like a more bigger name in the scene.
yeah, just people backing you.
Because people talking about you.
It's not
So-
about
Yeah.
the numbers of your following. It's about the people that support you. And
But that's a big thing. That's a big difference from saying like I'd rather take someone with 10K than 5K.
Yeah, but 10K
that
is more likely
like
than
I'm talking Joe Brady in comparison to, I don't know, some unknown
Well, I know.
photographer that just got into the scene. That's the
know,
comparison I'm making.
Yeah, okay, but like I feel like that's again an unfair comparison. I feel like
It
if you're gonna
is.
have to compare, if you're gonna compare, right, like you have to be realistic in the sense, right? So it's like me versus shot by Kieran, you know, or like me versus Charles who works for G2. Like I would hire Charles because
Just
obviously
because of the
Charles works-
company he has worked with.
he's worked with, right? Like, and it's that kind of sense. I know he's working full time esports, and most people who follow my Twitter know that I'm trying to balance, you know, my family back at home with my university masters with esports. So it's like I know like I think people the problem in esports is people aren't realistic with like how they need to achieve things.
Mhm.
Like I think the mindset people have pros, players, same thing. You know, it's all over. People believe they're better than what they are without proving it. If that makes sense.
And there's the philosophy in creatives that like the only way to grow or get name recognition to get these positions is just to post a bunch of designs on social media.
Yeah.
Which is wrong. I mean, we just
It
spoke
is.
about it earlier that you need to be reaching out to teams, organizations, companies, showing them that you're interested in working with them. And that's going to go a longer way than posting a design.
I think that it's just a combination of having people that back you, like previous clients, and putting your work out there on social media. And I think that combination is just the best. Like I'm posting my photos even though COVID is happening and everything. Like we don't have events, but I have photos from previous events, and those teams are still playing right now. But I'm posting those photos just because I want to keep in touch with the organizations I've worked with, and they know what I've done for them. And once COVID is over, they will probably still speak on the same level about me as before. Not because like, I mean, that would make a difference if I would have just gone away. Like I wouldn't have posted anything. I think that does make a really big difference. Even if you can't take the photos, you can still do something in the meantime.
And I mean, posting, it
you can
allows
always
you
post.
to, yeah.
feel like-
I mean,
yeah,
it allows your name to still be in people's heads.
Yeah, there's
Even-
nothing
post,
nothing
and you
stopping you from that.
You can always post and you can always show you're willing to learn. All right? Like I don't know how many times. Like Singularity, in my eyes, have one of the best CS, like best editors that the esports scene have. Right? A Jules. I don't know how many times I can say like people are like, oh, like what got you into it? And how many times I'm like, man, like I seen this guy do this video and I'm trying to make that kind of stuff, you know. I want to learn how he's doing that, and that promotes you on. Like it's just a mental battle. Like you need to, people like can't be like, oh, I had this idea because, you know, I felt like, what if I expanded into that industry? People, organizations love community in esports, right? Creative podcast shows, you know, we're showing about community, congratulating other videographers, other photographers on a project they might have done. It shows a community. It shows you're not a sore loser, and it shows that, you know, you're willing to learn like constantly, right? Like it's small things organizations look out for.
Yeah.
Like I want to go to this question because this is the kind of stuff we're talking to. Geo Creatives messaged Seb saying, I'd love to do it as a part-time job due to me going to work with my dad, which is what I want to do. The thing I struggle to gain clients, which is making hard to do. So could I have some tips? And that's what I'm talking about, right? Like in the community aspect is like if you tweet at other photographers, or you go into DMs and you're like, man, can I have feedback? You know, like, or what can I do better? You know, or like, God, like, man, that's so sick. You know, like it shows that you want to learn. All right, it shows that you want to become better, and organizations love when people want to become better because if they already have a good base level or a good foundation, then on top of that, they're showing they want to grow, right? So that's where I'm going in terms of you need to show community aspect. You can't be on Twitter like talking bad about other things or whatever, because then it's like the org will see it as like an ego thing. You know, they're like, oh well, this guy thinks he's the best. But like I've talked to Joe Brady, and Joe Brady, you know, multiple times he's like, yeah, I'm not the best photographer out there. You know, like when he's won the most awards. So
Yeah, but that
theory,
doesn't define you as being the best photographer, in my opinion.
yeah, but
Because
to
no,
public it does.
the thing in it does to public and people that are not knowing what they're talking about most of the time. But
Which is
the
what
thing with
Twitter
photography
most of
is
the time is.
it's someone's taste. Like it's different from every person. And every photographer has their own way of editing and has their own way of showing images. Ask two photographers to edit the same picture and you'll get something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's just about personal taste and what you want to go for as an esports organization. And what I see in the chat right now is art is subjective, and yes, it fucking is.
100%. And I mean, orgs, I feel like orgs will also look at people like any creative industry, like in terms of like what they're doing, and they'll look at their style, and then they'll also choose based off that. So
it has to match
so you
with the
aren't
company.
necessarily better than the other options. It's just that your work fits better with what they're trying to achieve.
Like, listen, no company is picking up people like without a plan in their head. All right, like just because you drop a bomb ass photo, like even if the photo got like 200,000 likes, or you drop a video with like millions of views or whatever, no org is gonna be like, hey, we should pick that person up, right? Because of that one video. The org the org is planning. The org has people to plan. So all right, well, if we bring this particular style on, like, what are we gonna do? So you often see orgs go through changes, right? Often you'll see like an org will go from one stage into like a glitch stage, like a glitch team kind of stage, or they'll go from the glitch team stage to the graffiti. Fnatic, great example of it. They constantly are switching up their flow, which is why their followers, you know, are constantly coming back because they're changing things up.
Yep.
You know, so it's you can best believe these people are in the background, you know, trying to find the best for what suits them 100%. But the thing is when it comes to the concept of like how much the public can persevere, like, or change the organization thing, that's where I'm coming in, right? Because you've just said Joe Brady, like, well, I mean, like, Joe Brady saying he's not the best is quite hard to do, right? Because his work is just phenomenal either way. But in that terms, right, of why I think organizations don't actually look at the public is purely for that reason. Because on paper, like, to a public, to most of Twitter who don't know the photography industry, who don't know the creative industry, which is most of esports, right? Because most people are there for the players. He is the best because he has the awards saying he's the best. Or Hitch, who shouldn't have won the last videographer of the year thing because he retired 2 months into the esports season, won it because his name was with Optic, you know. That shows the public has a different concept of what the creative industry should be in that case. So that's why I think organizations oftentimes will ignore what the public are saying. Like, these vouchers, the orgs don't care about vouchers because the org is either way is just going to take on, you know, what portfolio shows best interest for them, right? Again, this is something, you know, I don't know, like, if I'm spitting, like, everyone can see what I'm saying completely different. And this is something that I really want to hit on when we have an org owner. on the channel, right? Because then we can really break it down better. We can actually take in an org owner. Like, I'm never going to own an org. Like, I know I'm not going to own an org. Yeah, it's too much money for me.
It is an investment. That's the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, like so I know
That
I'm
could
not
be a
gonna...
topic though, because you can see
Yeah.
like a ton of these teams popping up out of nowhere, trying to, and like they're growing, but they don't have anything like going on for them, and they're trying to get like branding, graphics, and all that stuff done without any money, and then they're picking up these amateur teams without any money, and they're expecting to like rise to the top like it used to be. Because a lot of the orgs that we know that are super famous now or were famous, RIP, Old Optic, they all started out like that, right? But the times have changed and people are still stuck.
Well, you
on that way of
can't
thinking.
make a big name of like without investing. You won't get anywhere right now within esports, and it's with photography,
You need to be
with
ready to
freelance,
lose
with
money.
everything. It's being an organization. Everyone has to put in money. Sep, shh. That's what someone said in the chat.
But like, so,
But I
like,
want to
don't
wait.
think-
I want to take back my words about Joe Brady, by the way, because just to clarify, I don't think that he isn't the best in the scene, because I really look up to him, and I think that he is currently the best photographer in the scene in what he's doing.
I just needed to use him as an example
Yeah.
because he's won the most awards, right? So it was more like if Joe Brady wasn't the best, right?
Yeah,
like,
but I
we
get
know
why
he's the
he
best
would
because-
say that he wouldn't be the best, because, well,
because art is subjective.
yeah.
So among the creatives, and I feel like I have a personal reason, right, and why I don't think following mean anything, in this sense, right? And like, obviously, okay, the UK awards, it's a bit of a meme in the thing, but it's big inside UK orgs, it's big inside the UK community. So I'm nominated as a videographer finalist. No idea why. Flux, way better than me, you know? Like, I can think of a few people who deserve that spot more than me. Or at least in my head, I feel like, you know, there's better off people.
Mm-hmm.
I get voted in, you know? Whatever, I go to the finals, you know, and I don't win. Obviously, Rice by Riesman wins, well deserved win. Nothing to say that. But I came out of like being a finalist with no clients, you know, like no esport work waiting for me, you know. But I'm an award nominator, so like I got there by a following, but no one was waiting for me on the other side. It wasn't until I came back into esports, because I then left due to family problems, and I came back and I was like, okay, I figured out what I want to do. I figured out esports is what I want to do, and I grinded every day. I was working behind projects. Like Cluxer came, like that's when we started properly talking and stuff. You knew, like, I was working on CS, I was working on edits, I was getting ready for Malta, a tiny LAN. I was getting ready for Malta, and then I came back from Malta. Now I had all the smaller orgs, the smaller amateur scenes ask me to go to places, and then I went to Minnesota, and now I have all the mid tier.
Yeah, you just have to work your way up.
So
That's
like
the whole thing.
that's why I feel like your following doesn't decide the fate of who gets hired. Now, of course, graphic designers, videographers, completely different area. Um, videos will obviously get broken down a lot more probably than a graphic will, because there's more money investing in terms of like videos. Again, we're getting sent to events, hotels, flights, pay on top of that. So you can be sure they're going to break it down a lot more expense wise. But that's just like something that I felt like I needed to say, and why I felt the following doesn't or won't decide on where you go in esports, but how much your will, like how much mentally, like you have to be invested to get to that place.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Like, I think that is more important, but like name recognition at the start matters, because and you can get that by the way you did it, and a lot of people do, and that's a good way of doing it. But I mean, if you are new to this or anything, but you do get that name recognition by growing on social media, the more people that see you, the more likely they are to commission you, or a company is to come to you for a position, because they see your work more.
But in the
And I
end,
mean, at
it's
that
always you have to grind for what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
You can't sit still. What I'm doing right now, for example, is I'm working with Elgato, well-known company, for some photos, and you just have to keep on taking photos because you can't just sit down and post nothing. That's the whole point. Same with Mick. He is doing videos, editing, everything. You have to keep trying to improve all the time. And that's the same with graphic designers, but the difference is like you guys don't go to events, you're always at home basically. But still you have to keep going because otherwise you're just going to fade away. And even if you know your camera, like you can know your camera, but if you're going to an event, you have to be thinking about it again. And what I have normally is I go to an event and I know everything about my camera, which makes it easier for me to work there. And that's just the difference. Like, don't think you're just clicking a few photos and you're making it with that. You have to keep improving. And especially in the beginning, go out with your camera. Do what, I mean, it's kind of hard now, but you can do it in your room. Photograph bottles. I don't care. But get to know your camera before you're going out to events. Because if you know your camera, you know what you're doing, and it makes life so much easier.
I mean, for you guys, it's, a lot of it is angles and like positioning on like how the light hits the subjects that you're capturing, and knowing your camera and knowing like how to like angle stuff properly is going to go a long way in setting up your shots for the players, especially even more because the lighting at events is notorious for usually being very crappy.
Being shit, yeah.
So the whole thing about videos and photos, right, is you're trying to capture the moment, and moments are unpredictable in life. Everyone will tell you, you never know what's going to happen to you, right? So videos, same thing as what Sam is saying. You go out, take your video, and create short films. Create short films in public, birds flying, slow motion, people walking during this time, empty streets, like create short films and try and build a storyline to it. These kind of things are practicing. I know so many people from university, especially, again, all freelancers, so many people who are like, oh man, I'm out of all my money because I don't have any video projects. I'm like, well, edit. They're like, yeah, my editing isn't strong. It's my video work that I'm taking my pride on. Like what? Like my video editing, it wasn't that strong either, but like it's definitely stronger now from the start of COVID because like it's an area where like I knew I could improve, and I knew now's the perfect time to improve. Like even if they're basic edits, you're still improving, and not only are you improving bit by bit, but you're showing when you post an edit or when you post a small thing, you're showing that you're expanding your skill set. So like a lot of videographers, they can do the very basics of editing, which isn't great in the terms, and freelancers should know how to be able to balance out both. But the thing is, like that's something organizations would look for. Like an organization would love to be able to have a videographer or an editor, so they could be like, well, this videographer is closer to this event, so you're going to edit, and or else vice versa.
Yeah.
Like there's so many little things that people can do in the photography and video scene to improve themselves. What I do on a daily basis, I pick one video, whether it's a short film because I studied drama production or not, and I write notes. I literally physically write notes. I break down what they did, what would work better, what, like, maybe it was the script could work better, maybe if they added this shot into this cinematic it would work better. That's improving your theory of video production. It's small things. There's not really excuses.
I'm not trying to cut you off here, but I think we have to move on to the next subject as well.
Yeah,
because we have been going on for 50 minutes about the same subject.
Technically, he did go in. We have been talking about all of them. If you look at the topics that we're talking about, they're all incorporated in what we're saying.
Okay, I mean, but what I want to do is pull up a smart term agreement that I once signed from an organization before an event, because I got some questions about it in my DMs as well. Like, how do you set up a small term agreement, and what does it actually look like? And how do you know if it's good or not? This example might not be the best. I'm gonna pull it up now.
Terrible example.
Yes, it is. Sorry, Seb, you're gone. So is your face cam at the moment. This was one of my small term agreements that I got before an event. The event is actually named in the thing. It's probably CDL London, I guess. But it's just something written down with signatures on it about what I was gonna do for the organization and like how much they were gonna pay me. Obviously, it's blacked out because I don't want to show names of the organization and everything. But let's just go over it, right? So first of all, it says what the document is made for, the amount that's gonna be paid, and what the amount is actually for. In this case, they were paying my hotels. So that amount was just specifically for my hotel. You can name it as just payout or whatever, doesn't matter. Name the event, name what's gonna happen if someone doesn't deliver. If I don't deliver my photos, what's gonna happen then, which is specified like at the bottom of it as well. Or if the organization doesn't pay me for a certain date, which probably is like adding a bit of money because you were gonna hire me, and if you didn't pay according to the thing, you can bring them to small claims court, which is actually in the thing as well, in the agreement. So this is just a small list of things that I was gonna do for an organization. I signed it, and you never know if it's any good, to be honest, because people are liars. You can't trust anyone.
It's just the problem of contracts in the amateur scene, right?
Yeah.
Especially where me and Sam were COD scene, like contracts just like
they don't
they're-
mean
they're
shit
almost-
unless
they're almost
you're working
useless.
with a big company. But even then, you have those companies that are still something else, like Red Reserve, for example.
What's important about this is it's in writing, right?
Yeah.
If anyone knows anything to do with legal matters, writing is, the most solid evidence into court that can be taken place, right?
Yep.
Especially a signature. So the one thing I would say about this contract, right, is you said yours sincerely, but it should be staff player signature, and then under that, it should be owner signature, right? So like because obviously it's online, you can do electric signatures, or you bring it to the LAN event itself, and you're like whoever's representing you, sign,
Yeah.
right? Because like just
You
it's
want
just
both parties on
yeah.
writing saying they agree to it, because this one is just. I'm assuming this is from the organization to you,
Yeah, it was.
and not you from the organization. So, that's good, and I agree with you guys that especially for people who are at events and stuff, even for freelance people like Seb, that doing contract agreements per project is a lot safer than just by going on word of mouth to because like a lot of people, and we talked about being paid before or after projects. If if you don't take payment or half payment, or if you don't take payment or only half payment before a project is done, and then like you do the project and then they just flake out on you, it's more than likely not to happen if you have like agreements set up and all of that stuff beforehand before you start doing the work, because you have it in writing that they're agreeing to the terms of whatever project they're trying to get you to do. And it's the same for you guys, because you guys have to travel to these events, and I mean, if you're not getting like these contracts or stuff like this worked out, there's nothing.
I always
this
try to get
contract
these
wouldn't
contracts
work.
first.
This contract wouldn't work for me, or purely for the fact, right? Like my argument with that, the consistent argument that you'd get in videos is like, well, I didn't agree to that, I didn't agree to that team, I didn't agree to that video direction or whatever. So like behind this contract, I'd have another sheet saying, this is exactly what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Like so.
And you
like,
kind of you hit on that the last
Yeah.
time too. It's like
Yeah,
how you
like-
break down everything that you plan on doing, and then that they already agreed to beforehand before you do it. Because
treatments and proposals is what it's called. And if you're in video production or editing, like please start adapting it into your thing for your own safety, okay?
yeah,
Because if an org, as immature as it might be, or the org owner goes on Twitter and slates, without or subtweets you, and everyone knows it's you, it's a lot easier to just tweet the picture of the contract,
Yeah.
be like, well, that's what he agreed. Tweet the video next. That's what was released. I did my part, and people will see. People can literally see, that's what was agreed upon, right? That's worst case scenario if someone tries to take you down. It never will happen because it looks really bad on the owner's part, right?
Yeah.
But
when it comes to contracts, though, isn't there would you say there's an unwritten rule about keeping them private?
Most of the
Because you just
time,
said
yeah,
tweet them
but
out.
Not at all. I don't.
Okay.
Well, so yeah, there's an unwritten rule in the sense of if it's a good contract, or if it was good at the time or whatever. But if someone's targeting you, you target them back. That's that's nature of business.
yeah,
If you can look at Lidl and Aldi, the complete opposite of our industry. Like if one of them companies is missing a product in their thing, the other company has it by the next day in their company. Like it's the nature of business to adapt. On mistakes or any area open. So if someone's targeting your back and your work or whatever, now the difference is if someone's targeting your back and it's a stupid thing that they're tweeting. It's like it's pure idiot. Like what they're saying just makes no sense. Everyone can see it makes no sense or whatever, then there's no point in tagging them back, or whatever. But if an order comes for you and says he didn't stay up to his contract or whatever, and you haven't signed an NDA, I would say slap that thing straight away.
yeah.
Like if Tfue didn't have a FaZe contract or didn't sign an NDA with FaZe, his lawyers would have 100% told him to slap that contract down on Twitter. And how do we know he would have? Because his lawyers told him to get that contract released onto Twitter, and FaZe did release the Twitter contract, and stuff. So if you haven't signed an NDA and an org is coming for your back, you go for their back, Like that's the way you have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Now maybe that's my inner Irishness,
No, not even that. It's just being a businessman.
You got to protect your own reputation. Absolutely.
In the end, it's just you, and especially if you're working for yourself as a freelancer, you have to protect your company because no one else is going to do it for you. Normally, if you're running a big company and you have employees and everything, they will stand up for you if you're right, or maybe if you're wrong as well. You always have those loyal people that will stand up for you, even if.
Well, I mean, their jobs are on the line as well.
Yeah,
I mean, if they work
that's
for
what
your
I mean.
company-
They would be able to get really mean at you, and with organizations, it's the same because they have staff members and everything. So if you have the opportunity to put that contract online, if they I don't know, if they say it's not true and everything, then you're in your own right to post it, in my opinion.
Before we go to answer these questions, I'll say the downfall of organizations has been the truth coming out. Red Reserve, the truth came out. The players brought it out that they were owed like 50, 60,000, They did it without releasing their contract, right? But they're in a different area. The creatives came out saying they were owed money, The truth wasn't there. They couldn't release projects because the money never came through or the owner went back on his word. And who's a greater example of it? Denial.
Yep.
Denial did the same thing. All the creatives, all the industry came out because it's literally what you said, Colin. It's like their jobs are on the line. If an org is making stuff up about one of their creatives because the public are like, why would you get rid of him? He was your best or whatever, And they're like, they make up something to get rid of them. Who knows what they're going to do to the rest of their staff?
Yep.
And that now we don't see that often in esports anymore, right? Because in the upper end, because esports has come a long way in the last 5 months even, right? Like esports is constantly becoming more and more professional and fair among the upper orgs or the orgs who want to get to that level. But it's still something where if you don't have an NDA signed, right, and most orgs don't even know what NDAs mean, I in my case, I wouldn't have no problem showing the contract. If they, I would, everything should be in DMs. Everything should be in DMs. But if that company makes a statement on Twitter, and the statement isn't like a normal statement, like, oh, due to disagreement or due to different ideas, we've decided to part ways with, like at McG production or whatever. But it was more of a statement like, oh, he didn't do what we asked him. He was constantly like, they were slating your name. Like you have to defend yourself.
Yeah. Because your name is the only thing that's going to getting you clients.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like,
your reputation in both the real world, like the real world, the jobs outside of esport production and production is the exact same. Your reputation means everything.
Yep.
If you make a mistake, an honest mistake, and lived up to it, like or whatever, like your chances of getting hired still go to very zero, kind of in productions. But at least the company, they won't slate your name. They'll be like, yeah, he made a mistake that cost us this, this shot or this or whatever. But he was a great guy. He came on time, he knew his camera equipment well, right? So like you have that going for you. Your reputation in esports and projects outside of esports, your reputation is all you have.
Yep. But I think you have to be really careful with big companies and making mistakes. Because I don't know if I told everyone yet, but I used to work for a company that made over 4 million a month in profits. Yeah, that's fucking insane. I know.
Wow.
It was a media company. Let's put it like that. But if you fuck up for yourself there, everyone's gonna know it because they're in touch with smaller companies as well. And that's the thing about freelancers and esports and everything. Like, everyone knows each other, and if you do a bad job, like I said last week, other people will know it too. Because what I would do in the first place when I'm hiring someone is go back to the previous people they've worked with. Like that's how it works with normal jobs as well. Just give them a call, send them a message. What was that person like? Would you like to work with them? Especially if you're offering them a full-time contract, for example. I think you should really think about that, and sometimes you just have to play nice, even though you don't want to, and even though you're feeling really bad. Sometimes it really doesn't matter. You have to play nice and maybe put a mask on, but that's how it is, and that's how it is with every job.
I mean, you have to stay professional. I mean, even if you don't like the people you work with, I mean, you can't, like, if you're rude to the people you work with, that reputation of being rude to the people, like not being a team player and being rude to the people you work with, that's going to follow you the entire time. And if that, like, if it becomes like a super well-known thing, companies aren't going to want to work with you because most projects take more than just one person to do. And they have to potentially collab with multiple people to get ideas and stuff going. And if you're known for not like being open to new ideas or being able to provide people with constructive criticism or anything like that, you're not going to be able to thrive in a scenario like that.
Yeah, it's so we're over time. I don't want to ruin the party, so I quickly want to get 2 questions in, right? I want to go back to, I don't know if Seb is here. I think he lagged out as well.
Yeah, probably. The internet connection is really bad due to many users on Discord, on Skype, on everything. So
I want to go back to this question that was asked to Seb, right? I'm guessing he's a creative person, or as in graphic design. He says, I struggle to gain clients, which is making it hard to do so. Could I have some tips? So Seb's back now. So I want to get Seb's to start off this this question that was asked. I don't know if you heard me say it, but the thing I'd love to do it as part of a part-time job due to me going to work with my dad, which is what I want to do. The thing is, I struggle to gain clients, which is making it hard to do so. Could I have some tips? That's Geo Creative, who's a social media designer. What can he do better to get clients?
What would I do to get clients?
Yeah.
What tips would you give someone who needs to get clients and they're starting?
Sorry. Well, the thing is that I think it's different for every people in the community
Mhm.
because I don't know. As I told you at the beginning of the podcast, like in my opinion, this community it's all about fame and about like the number of followers you have. If you have followers, you'll get clients. People will know you, and people will come to you DMs. And if you're no one, well, no one will contact you.
Yeah, the difference
So
between like in that
I
case,
mean,
it's like you getting clients and me not getting clients. You have
But
5,000 followers. I have less than
surely,
300.
surely there's a way
I'm-
though that you calling can get clients, right?
yeah,
Even
I
without-
mean that's sad, but I mean that's how it works in my opinion in here.
Mhm.
And well, if you want to get client, the tips I could give is maybe make fictive projects for teams. And the fans of this team will probably like you have a chance that one of them will contact you and look at your work, will like it, and will ask you for small work maybe.
That's what happened to
Um,
me. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
I did. You know how I do projects sort of like yours when it comes to esports stuff, where I'll make up like a project to do for a brand, just to have work out on social media and stuff. Did some work with this team that I'm not gonna name, but they saw it, they liked it, and I joined their Discord because why not? Potential like communicating with the staff and whatnot, right? After a while, after being in the Discord for a little bit, I get a DM on Discord from one of their social media guys, and the next thing I know, I'm working on a project for them because they saw and liked the free social media project that I did just for fun, and so that does work. And I also do get clients on the side from like companies and stuff that I followed and was like communicating with and stuff just by like responding to tweets and stuff. They saw my work and then they gave it a shot. Like that's how I go about getting client work. You know, I do free projects for these companies or teams. If they like it, then there's a good chance of them, and it's worked
Yeah.
multiple times for me
It
for them
opens the
to reach out
relationship.
to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hold
all I was gonna say is that for one of them specifically, it's a company, not a team. They've come back to me multiple times after the original, just because they like what I do, they like my style, and they know that I'm reliable. And it's the same with teams and stuff. So, like, if you are just starting out, you don't have a lot of followers, and you don't have like that name recognition, just do like me. Make these free projects, and you don't even have to do them for like the biggest teams. That's not the way to do it, honestly. Because I mean, those large organizations that already have graphic designers, most likely they're not going to be reaching out to anyone freelance to get people to join their teams. So you can go for like the mid-tier, smaller orgs that have money because they have like professional teams and stuff, and just make and same with companies, and just make them projects, and
Yeah.
that's how you start building that recognition.
And I think
I've
it's
got many.
how you can do it in photography is doing something extra on the job you're doing. Like deliver some extra photos, do that. And if you want to get into product photography, because I know a lot of people would like to do that, start shooting with the products you would like to work, like the companies you would like to work with. Just do the same exact thing. Do things for free in the beginning, post it online. Maybe it will get picked up, maybe not, but keep grinding for it. Get better and improve, and that's how you get picked up eventually.
And like Mick said earlier, orgs in the esports community like to see people who are willing to improve and want to improve. And another thing that I wanted to add on top of that earlier, but I didn't, was that if you have the baseline skill set, even if you aren't one of the best, orgs might still want to work with you because they can help you develop.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to help.
Exactly. They want.
Yeah, it's. I know, Seb, you were going to say something before Cluxer started speaking.
Yeah. Well, maybe I've got another tip for like people who want to get clients and stuff. I don't know if that's the best way, but I know it could work. But maybe you won't touch the same people. So if you're really struggling with clients, I would say to maybe go for content teams. So just to give names, probably teams that like Synergy, Obi Alliance, team that used to be Dare Rising, these kind of teams. They're not paying you. I mean, I don't know if the teams I mentioned are paying the designers, but even if they don't, like, I'll say that the fact that you will have their name in your name, so like if you're like Obey Colin or Synergy Colin, people from the content community will probably contact you for Twitter headers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's facts.
Absolutely, because it, like I mentioned earlier, it builds that reputation. People will trust because you work with a team that has name recognition.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is dangerous things though.
Maybe that works for graphics, right? Well, again, it's something I want to get an org owner to speak about, like what people can do from an org perspective. For me, in video, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it a third time. If you go to an event and you're just starting off, you're going on your own money more than likely. Make as many films as you can of different orgs that you want to work with, because let me tell you, even if the owner doesn't follow you, or the org itself doesn't follow you, you are on their radar. They know of you, they've seen the video, and you can best believe they have a book open beside them of possible freelancers, of possible clients that they can use, of you might be like fourth on their list, you might be third on the list. You go to another event, this time you're getting paid to go to that event. Again, don't only do your client work. You prioritize your client work, but if they're not playing and another org that you like, is playing, capture, like it takes 5 minutes to make some short, obviously it won't be good as your priorities to prioritize work. But again, you tweet that onto social media and it goes onto your own social media. It works the same as what Seb is saying. Now their followers are seeing it. The org will probably retweet it. The org owner, once again, it's like, okay, like that's capture in my eye. I like this kid.
And with that being said, we will be bringing on guests probably from next week on. Different guests in both the esports scene as like org owners, but also other freelance people like product photographers and everything. And I think we should move on with the second question to finish it off for today. So, Mick, what was the second question? I believe it was a question by Dole, right?
Yeah, so Dole said, how to get a chance to join a big org. Sometimes it's a problem that you see an org, it has bad graphics, and you want to improve it. I'm guessing improve the graphics, that the org is releasing. They like my work. Sometimes they like my work, but they only want to see me in their office. They don't want me freelance.
I've got something to say about this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for years, I tried to do this, like to work for big organizations, do fictive projects, do everything like this, and it never worked. Like it did for like small teams, but never a big organization. And last year, I was basically at the end of my design school, so I tweeted that I was almost done with studies and stuff, and I got contacted by G2 Esports for a full-time position in Berlin. And well, I realized that you don't need to do fictive projects and stuff if you want to be recognized. Like big organizations comes to you. You don't have to go to them, in my opinion, because you're saying that you want to improve the visuals of an organization and stuff, but you don't know if they have the budget to pay for it actually and stuff. So what I would say is that if you're looking to work with a big organization, they will come to you if they want to. That's my opinion on this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, there's only one thing like that I can really say, right? In this case, if an organization only wants you full time, you have to respect it. More than likely, if you're on full time and your pay, you're happy with the pay, and you're willing to accept it, you're probably going to be busy for the time that they need you for, right? Like, so if you sign a 40-hour contract, you're probably going to be busy for the 40 hours, and they don't want you, having to work with other projects. They don't want you having to prioritize other clients, because when you're freelance, you have to balance clients, and they know that, so they might not want that. So if you want to join an org, but you're not willing to join full time, the chances are of making, like, you can ask them to contract you. So if they have any projects, they pay by the contract. But it's very rare you're going to work full time for an org and make all that money, as well as take in extra money. And the reason for that is because an org pays full time because they want to prioritize you as their graphic designer. They don't like seeing you work with other people, because for them mentally, it'll take out the concept that you're working with them solo. Like, you are their designer. You're their designer, they're your org, right? And if they're paying you 3,000 a month, they have every right to be upset. In my opinion, we've talked about this many of times. But if an org is paying you 3,000, or if you're a big freelancer, and you make more than 3,000, ask them for more money. Say, okay, I'm willing to go full time with you, but you're gonna need to pay me more than what your amount is, because I'm shutting off my client list. I'm not accepting any more clients if I'm going full time, if I'm only working for you. So if they're not willing to up their budget and you're not happy with the amount, I would say it's just not worth pushing for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something we can close this week's podcast with. And I think you're completely right, Mick. You can always try to ask for more money, and like we say in the Netherlands, like, you have a no and you can get a yes, and which means you can always try and expect the answer to be a no. But if it's a yes, then that's fucking great.
That's true.
But I mean, if you're trying to be full time, you're not, like Mick said, you're not going to get a full time position remotely. Any big org is going to want you in their offices.
Yeah, most of them.
I think, and again, like, that's the whole thing of the creative industry. If they want you remotely, then you have a stronger case of pushing that you should be allowed to, like a freelance project here and there, right? Because you're working from home, so you can stay up longer or whatever. But if you're in the offices, it's probably because you're going to be in the office. It's probably because they're going to, they're coming into, like, the LCS. If it's G2, they're coming into the LCS. They need all the graphics. Orgs have dedicated busy periods, like, for different games. So building into CSGO majors, G2 will prioritize their CSGO team over their League of Legends team. Going into the LCS splits, League of Legends will prioritize over that. Rainbow Six, they'll prioritize Rainbow Six over that. So that's probably why they want offices. But here's the thing, okay? There's good news for you. Yes, you didn't sign a full-time contract. It sucks. We know, they won't allow you to do freelance. But the good news is,
we're all at home right now anyway.
Well, you're home. And the best thing about it is, you had an organization want you as a full time. Accept it, mentally understand that you were good enough at what you do, that an organization wants you and only you to come on board. It might not have worked out the way you wanted it, but use that as your advantage. Use that as your motivation. That I've been good enough to get an offer from, let's say Fnatic. I've been good enough to get an offer from Fnatic. That means I can freelance my way. I can start bumping up my price range. Like if Fnatic or a big org like that kind of caliber is coming to you, it means you're good. It means exactly what Seb is saying. It means you are recognized in the scene. And what the best thing about being recognized in the scene is you can go to anybody, YouTubers. You can go to YouTubers, and probably means you're not just doing one trick for every graphic. It means you're experienced, you have expansion, you are good enough to be noticed in multiple reigns. Use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Joe Brady, best example I can give. Doesn't work necessarily for organizations, but works for events. Because he's so good. He can work at League of Legends, he can work at Call of Duty, he can work at CSGO, he can work at Rainbow Six, he can work for all of these different games because everyone knows that with him, he's good enough to do that. And now you have that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Seb's, like you guys mentioned earlier, freelance is where, like, you have freelance is where it's at, honestly. I mean, you can make way more money being a freelance designer than you can working.
It just takes more time.
Yeah, when you can working full time, because they're gonna limit how much they pay you, and they're gonna limit like your ability to work with other people, like they said, because you're gonna be working with them in person, and they're wanting all your time dedicated to them. But if you're freelance and you're good enough to be given those offers, then you are also good enough to be reaching out to teams and offering your freelance services whenever they need it,
And the good thing is, well, I was going to add on top of that, the best thing about it is most organizations, if they get really busy, will bring freelancers into the organization on a contract. They'll be like, hey, man, we need a graphic designer for 1 month and only 1 month. I know you won't work full time with us. Would you be willing to freelance for this month with us? There you go. Now you're in with the organization. Now not only have you got them as a reference, but your portfolio has them. Future clients know that you worked with that organization. So I would never say not being able to work with an organization is a bad thing, because you always need to remember that it's an organization willing to work with you, and that's a positive note. That means you're in the right step. Now, of course, freelance, no dedicated holidays. At least when you work full time, you're guaranteed holidays. You're probably getting sick pay, depending on where you live. You're probably, getting like healthcare, dental, all these things, depending on the organization where you live again. So there's a lot of benefits working full time. But if you're only after money, freelancer. It's a solid. It takes longer to get into the freelance industry because you have to build everything from scratch. But believe me, like, it pays off. Hard work pays off. But yes, I agree with Sam. It is definitely time to wrap up once again.
Yeah.
We went half an hour over time.
Wow. You see, good conversation keeps it entertaining, and we all have very different views on everything, and I mean, it's just sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the devil advocate of the creatives over here. It's like you three with one idea, the chat agreeing with it, and then there's me like, well, nah, like let's break this down.
You know what?
Okay.
You know what? You're the guy who disagrees with everyone, just so you're the one.
Well, I want people to understand reality, right? And I feel like if we're always backing one thing, it's a dangerous play because it might not always work out that one way. So that's why I like to, like, even I could be saying stuff where I might not completely agree with, but it might be the case for a lot of people. You might need to be ready for that case. So that's why I do it. However, I'm gonna say, keep up with our social medias. Watch episode 1 if you haven't. We will be tweeting very soon what our project is for next week. Same time, same place. Make sure to follow if you're new. We are gonna be uploading stuff to our YouTube, and now we're going into the real interesting stuff because we have made our presence known here with you guys. You know how we feel about the basics. So now we're going to start bringing in stuff. We're going to start breaking down videos, breaking down graphics. We're going to start bringing in org owners. All right,
So,
things
Mick,
are about to get
congrats on the new one.
interesting.
Yeah, so we
I look
will be
forward to it.
announcing the first person to come on the show for somewhere next week. I expect it to be Wednesday or Thursday, something like that.
And we'll
So-
all tweet it.
Yeah, we will all tweet it. We don't have a specific Twitter dedicated to the Creatives podcast just because, well, we are all creatives and some of us might not be available in some episodes. So,
And this project is for everybody. All right, we're doing this like because we know each other. Okay, so remember that. Like, we're doing this for the community. I think there's not enough talk among creatives out there in the public, and we want to bring you on that adventure. So I know
Good.
this has been a good 2 episodes. I've enjoyed it. I've been looking forward to it. Me and Sam were up till 5 a.m. talking about how we're excited, and other things. Isn't that right, Cluxer? Huh?
yeah. But yeah, we are very excited to bring this to you guys.
Well, I need to know.
No,
What other-
No, you don't have to.
No leaks here.
Just
NDAs.
about the current
NDAs.
situation with COVID and everything, just a long conversation about it because everyone is struggling and just talking about how we all handle it. That's basically what it was about.
The reason I think this podcast is great is because, especially with Mick here, and he goes over different. I know a lot of times Seb, Cluxter, and I all agree on one way, and then he talks about a different way. It's good that he does that because there's more than one way. There's always more than one way to look at a situation, and there's always more than one way to achieve the same goal.
Org owners are about to get angry at me. When we start bringing them on, I'm going to be questioning everything.
Nick is going to get blacklisted from like 50 different orgs.
Or maybe I'll get 50 org offers. That's the way to do it. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Folks, we've rounded up like the last 5 minutes trying to end off the podcast, but I'm going to leave it in Cluxer's hands to do the honors.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for watching this week. Seb, please wave. Are you still alive, or are you just a video playing all the time? Okay.
Say goodbye, Seb.
Say goodbye to the people in the stream. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next week, 8 p.m. BST, British Summer Time, once again, and we will have our first guest then. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for watching once again. Don't forget to follow and maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And yeah, goodbye.
Bye.